I won 30 million in the lottery after rebirth. In my previous life, I won 30 million in the lottery. I told my parents and bought them a house and a car. I made them keep it a secret from everyone. The parents readily agreed, but then turned around and told my cousin. The next day, my cousin came with a paternity test report, claiming to be my biological sister. My parents happily accepted her and demanded that I give half of my money to her. I refused, leading to an argument with them. In the chaos, my cousin pushed me down the stairs, leaving me in a vegetative state, yet my parents forgave her and even treated her as their own daughter. In the end, my parents and cousin lived lavishly with my 3 million, while I died of a lung infection in the hospital. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn on the day I won the lottery. This time I won't repeat the same mistake, looking at the zeros in my bank account. I finally believed I had truly been reborn. Since that's the case, I'll make sure to seize this opportunity properly. Suddenly, the ringing of the phone interrupted my train of thought. Nancy, you said on WeChat that you won a prize. Is it true? Came my mother's surprised voice over the phone. Yeah, I won 30. I fiddled with my bank card, waiting for her response. 300000. Really? My mother pressed on. Mom, what are you thinking? It's $30, I said with a forced smile. What are you showing off in the group chat for? Your cousin said someone in our city won 30 million in the lottery. It suddenly occurred to me that in my past life, my parents had also added my cousin to our family group chat. Really, that person must be very lucky, I said, glancing at the investment app on my phone. Come home early, my mother said sullenly before hanging up. The next second, I immediately took leave and distributed the money across several bank accounts. Just in case, since my parents wanted to become family with my cousin, I certainly had to fulfill their wish. Thinking of the paternity test results from my past life, I figured out how to help my parents achieve this desire. I hailed a Didi and rushed to my cousin's rented apartment. Cousin, I looked at my cousin in a fluster, then glanced around. What's wrong? My cousin deliberately toyed with the gold bracelet on her wrist, as if I couldn't see it. This time, I actually pretended not to notice. Our house might be demolished for redevelopment. Hearing this, my cousin immediately looked around and pulled me inside. How did you know? My cousin asked as soon as she closed the door. I found out by looking at that planning diagram. I took out the community planning map shared in the neighborhood group chat and said, so how will the demolition compensation be divided? My cousin asked while looking at the planning map. Based on population. It seems like 60 square meters per person, I said vaguely, seeing the sparkle in my cousin's eyes. I knew my plan was halfway to success. What did your parents say? My cousin continued to ask. They said they'd take the 120 square meter one, and I'd chip in some money to buy a 70 square meter one for myself. I kept spinning my tail. You have the money to buy? My cousin asked me incredulously. I chuckled sheepishly. I've managed to save 50 or 60,000 in the village over these years. So I wanted to borrow a bit from you, cousin. My cousin looked at me in disbelief. But your monthly salary is only 4,000, isn't it? But I eat, drink, and live at home, so I don't spend much money. I smiled and showed my cousin the balance. Now, the fish has taken the bait. The next day, as expected, my cousin brought the paternity test report to our home. The show begins. I looked at the paternity test report, pretending to be shocked as I glanced at my parents. Mom, Dad. What's going on? I threw the report onto the table. Nancy, listen to me. My cousin spoke up first. I looked at her, waiting for her to continue. I really wanted to see how she would explain this. Back then, Mom and Dad unexpectedly had you, but to evade the family planning policy, they had me adopted by our infertile aunt. As she spoke, my cousin took out the adoption certificate. Now you're already in such a hurry to call your own mother aunt, without changing my expression. I picked up the adoption certificate and looked at the official seal, then suddenly froze. At the time, we thought you were going to be a boy, so we had your sister adopted by your aunt, my mother said, holding my cousin's hand. You've suffered so much all these years. Father also looked at my cousin with heartache. Dad, Mom, it's your unfilial daughter who couldn't stay by your side to take care of you. My cousin knelt down in tears. So I was the only one kept in the dark. The dead memories suddenly flooded back into my mind. No wonder my parents used to pay rent for my cousin's apartment. No wonder my parents made me deliver meals to my cousin every day. No wonder my parents forgave my cousin in the end. Sister, you've suffered so much. I cried as I hugged my cousin. Since you care so much about this daughter, then keep her by your side and cherish her properly. My parents explained everything from the beginning, how they abandoned me in the river at birth, And how the fortune teller said I would bring wealth to the family. Although that fortune teller was quite accurate, I think he just wanted to save my life. Mom, Dad, I heard from my sister that the house is going to be demolished, my cousin asked. It started, and I lowered my head to hide my smile. Did Nancy tell you? Father looked at me reproachfully. Dad, I thought Sis wasn't an outsider, I said innocently. Exactly, Mother chimed in. Nancy said the allocation is based on per capita square footage, so I want to move my household registration back home to get a larger share, my cousin continued, but the demolition and relocation matter hasn't been finalized yet, my father said hesitantly, but I'll have to move my household registration back home eventually, my cousin said, shedding a few tears. Mom and Dad, I want to take good care of you in the future, my cousin added. Mom and Dad, my sister really wants to take care of you, I also chimed in to help. What about your aunt? My father continued to ask. I've already talked to my aunt and agreed to give her $3,000 per month for support. It's just that you'll have to share the responsibility with my younger sister here. My cousin looked at me expectantly. Wait for me here. It's all right, sis. It's only natural since I've been raised at home since childhood, I said understandingly. Dad, just fulfill Sis's wish. After all, this is only the second step of the plan. Soon, my father went to complete the household registration transfer. At the same time, I also finished buying a house and a car. To prevent my parents from finding out, I could only get the household registration booklet when my father transferred the household registration. For several days in a row, my mother took my cousin out every day to buy clothes and jewelry as compensation. During these days, I gradually moved all my belongings to the new house. Sis, I want to talk to you about something, I said, lying on the bed and facing my cousin. Go ahead, my cousin replied absent-mindedly, holding her newly bought iPhone. Actually, the family owes over $1 million in debt. Your arrival is just perfect. The demolition compensation gives us 240 square meters. So we can get 2 120 square meter apartments and sell one of them. I kept talking to myself, pretending not to notice my cousin's expression. When did this happen? My cousin interrupted and asked. It was a few years ago. Dad's business failed, and he owed over $1 million outside. Now we have to pay over $100,000 in interest every year. I continued speaking. I discovered these things in my previous life when I was buying a house and car for my parents. I originally intended to pay back all the money, but I never expected my cousin's sudden appearance would leave me in a vegetative state. Then why didn't you say so from the beginning? My cousin asked me furiously. I thought Mom had already talked to you about it these past few days, I said, feigning shock. It's fine, we can always sell the house to pay it back when the time comes, my cousin said nonchalantly. Dear cousin, perhaps you didn't quite listen to what I was telling you. I said the area might be undergoing demolition soon. Not long after, news spread again in the neighborhood group chat. Our neighborhood won't be demolished after all, my father said, looking at us. What? My cousin immediately stood up. What do you mean it won't be demolished? Mother continued to ask. There's a martyrs cemetery on the mountain next to our neighborhood, so it can't be demolished. Father pointed at the hill. It's okay. The four of us being together is just fine, I comforted them. What's so good about it? My cousin stormed out of the house. Mom, what's wrong with Sis? I continued with innocent confusion. And nothing. My mother's evasive eyes made me feel there must be something I didn't know. That night, my cousin didn't come home, and called to say she was staying at her place. Dear cousin, how come you can't take it already? This is just the beginning. I pretended to be heartbroken and returned to my room. My parents saw my state and came to comfort me, but they didn't know how happily I was laughing under the covers. The next day, my cousin came back to pack her things. Nancy, what's wrong? My mother asked, watching my cousin's movements. My cousin glanced at me but remained silent. Nancy, go out and buy some soy sauce for me. My mother waved her hand, signaling me to leave. Are you trying to get rid of me? I nodded, turned on my phone's voice recorder, and placed it on the table. By the time I returned, my cousin and mother were sitting in the living room chatting like a loving mother and daughter. Nancy, your sister and I have discussed it, my mother said to me as soon as I got home. The 70 square meter house isn't big enough for our family of 4, so you should move out. I froze for a moment. Why, Nancy, don't be upset. My cousin immediately stood up to comfort me. I thought about it. You need your own space, so Mom and I made this decision. Waiting for me here, I checked today's date, Saturday, when most people are usually at home. Since you're being unreasonable, don't blame me for being ruthless. I stepped back from the house and stood at the doorway. It's okay, Mom, I don't need personal space, I said understandingly. I do want to move out, but not because you're kicking me out. How can a girl not want personal space? My mother continued. I accidentally dropped the soy sauce bottle in my hand just in time, with a bang. The neighbors next door all opened their doors to look at me. Mom, if my sister needs privacy, I can stay in the living room. I raised my voice 2 notches higher. The innate human love for drama never changes, and people have another trait. What they value most is still face, reputation. Oh, little sister, what are you talking about? My cousin stood up, trying to pull me back home. Big sister, are you going to kick me out too? This is the home I've lived in for over 20 years. As I spoke, I pinched myself hard, and tears instantly welled up in my eyes. Little sister, what are you saying? My cousin gave my mother a meaningful look, and both of them reached out to pull me back home. Seeing the growing crowd, I deliberately fell backward and sat down on the ground. Mom, I stared at them in shock. Sister, even you. Tears welled up and rolled down my face at just the right moment, although I controlled my strength. It still hurt quite a bit. I understand, I said, standing up and dusting off my legs. Nancy, you fell on your own. How can you blame us? My mother immediately retorted. Yes, I fell on my own, almost tumbling down the stairs, I replied, stepping back a few paces and gripping the handrail. Mother was about to say something when I interrupted her. Mom, I'm leaving. After saying that, I entered the room and took the recording phone. How could the Lin family be like this? Aunt Lee said, trying to stop me. Forget it, Auntie, it's nothing. My tears welled up at just the right moment. What kind of parents are these? More and more people began to murmur. These uncles and aunties who've watched me grow up, will they stand by your side and blame me? Cousin, keep dreaming. Cousin, I listened to the neighbors upstairs chattering and pointing fingers, then cheerfully hailed a ride and drove off in style. Finally managed to leave home before they discovered the money, though earlier than planned. I made sure they didn't have it easy before I left. Now comfortably in my own place, I relax with a face mask while waiting for my food delivery. Ding ding dong ding dong, the phone rang, and I answered it directly. Hello, hi, probably the food delivery had arrived. Hello there, little sister, a familiar voice came through. I immediately tore off the face mask and sat on the sofa. This is a high-end residential community, and no one is allowed in without the owner's consent. So my cousin and the others shouldn't be able to find my address for now. Then what's the point of this call? I was speculating about my cousin's intentions here, but over there, she got straight to the point. You won the $30 million jackpot, didn't you? Not a question, but a statement. Sis, what are you talking about? I played dumb first. So far, no one but myself knows about my lottery win. With the experience from my past life, in this lifetime, I trust no one but myself. Check the picture I sent you on WeChat. I could hear the smugness in my cousin's voice, but at that moment, I could only play dumb. Pictures? What pictures? Suspicious. I opened WeChat and saw photos from the day I won the prize. I'd forgotten. Someone had been taking pictures non-stop after I won. But I was wearing a mask and a hat, and even deliberately put on a men's jacket. Even someone close to me might not recognize me. Sis, is there something wrong with this picture? I continued playing dumb. This person is you, isn't it? My cousin said triumphantly. Sis, if this were me, I would have told you all long ago. Why would I let you kick me out of the house? I said, plaintively. What? Are you turning your back on me now? If I admit it, you'll turn into a vampire. And I'm not that stupid, sis. I hesitated, then hung up the phone directly. I had thought about this matter being discovered by them long ago, but things still progressed too quickly. Ding ding dong, ding ding dong, the phone rang again, and I immediately threw it away. The helplessness I felt as a vegetative patient in my past life overwhelmed me. No, I can't repeat the same mistakes. I must stay calm. I picked up my phone again, staring at the cracked screen. Now, the first thing I need to do is figure out how to scatter all the money. I went to the phone store first to buy a new phone and changed my SIM card. At the very least, my cousin and parents won't be able to find me in the short term. Then, I contacted the largest real estate agency in the city and bought several properties across the country. A crafty rabbit has 3 burrows. I had to ensure my own safety. By now, most of the money had already been spent. I kept $200,000 as a reserve fund for myself and hired a financial advisor to manage the rest. It's quite simple. Aside from that $200,000, no one can take the rest unless I personally sign for it. Finally, I hired a lawyer to draft a will, just in case. After handling these matters, I took 3 days off and lay at home, wondering if I had missed anything. Oh, and there's that recording. There must be something in it that I don't know about. The familiar voice came through the recording. Sweetie. What's wrong, Mom? I've had enough. 4 people living in a 70 square meter apartment. I'd rather move out and rent my own place. The sound of my cousin throwing clothes could be heard in the recording. Sweetie, don't be in such a hurry. How can I not be in a hurry? She's just a foundling living with me. What right does she have? My cousin's furious voice came through. What do you mean by a foundling? I feel as if time has come to a standstill at this moment. No, it can't be. How could it? If it were me, why would they have raised me for so many years? No, it's impossible. Calm down, Nancy. Evidence. All speculation and facts require evidence. A cold sweat broke out on my back, and a chill rose from the soles of my feet, as if reminding me that this is reality. Be gentle. The mother's voice came from the recording, followed by the sound of a door closing. She hasn't gone far yet, Mom. Dad is already gone. You're all I have left. If you don't care for me, who will? What do you mean? Dad is still here, isn't he? So what does cousin mean by that? I know. Sweetheart, the first thing we need to do now is to drive Nancy away. Words that pierced like needles and stabbed like bones came from the recording. I struggled to suppress my emotions, forcing myself to keep listening. Zzz, wave after wave of static noise emerged from the recording. I only heard a fragmented sentence. Sweetheart, it's all yours. Mom will help you with everything. It must have been because I threw my phone away at that moment. All right, Nancy, calm down, stay calm. I mustered all my strength to stand up, washed my face, my mind a complete mess. The found child, the dead father, and what else belongs to my cousin? What's going on with all this? Could it be related to how they forgave my cousin in their past life? Or is this all just a scam? A scheme specifically designed to deceive me. When we wake up tomorrow, will we still be sitting together, eating well, chatting happily, and sharing these 30 million together? Yes, just sleep, and when we wake up, everything will go back to how it was. We'll go back, everything will go back. I was woken up by the cold. When I woke up, I was lying on the bathroom floor. The cold floor seemed to constantly remind me of the recording I had just made. Nancy, whether it's true or not, we need to get evidence. I took out a pen and paper and wrote down all my questions. 1. Am I my parents' biological daughter? If not, where are my biological parents? 2. Who is the deceased father my cousin mentioned, and what is his relationship with my parents? 3. What does my mother want to help my cousin obtain? I think these 3 questions are what I need to understand most right now. Early the next morning, I contacted 4 or 5 private detective agencies to investigate these 3 matters for me. Money wasn't an issue. As long as there was evidence, there would be truth. Of course, the truth about the first issue still required me to obtain the evidence myself. However, before I could go, my boss called. Hey, Nancy, where are you? Your sister and your mom came to the office looking for you. Boss, I'm at a friend's place. Could you tell them I'll be home tonight? I hung up the phone and sat in the car, staring at the building upstairs. This is utterly ridiculous. I was right downstairs at home, while my mother took my cousin to her workplace. Since they were coming to question me about the 30 million, I decided to tell them. After all, the words are mine to say, and the money is in my hands. Whatever I say, they'll have to believe it. That night, I walked through the door carrying some fruit. Although I knew I wouldn't be in the mood for a proper meal tonight, I still bought my favorite fruits. Nancy is back, my cousin said warmly. Watching my parents and cousin as a happy family of 3, I nodded. Don't just stand there, Nancy. Sit down and rest for a while. My cousin was making herself at home, as if this wasn't my house anymore. I sat down and casually picked up a banana to eat. After all, a full stomach gives you strength to fight. Before long, my cousin came up to me and pulled out a few photos. Nancy, this is you, isn't it? My cousin pointed at the person wearing a man's jacket in the photo. Sis, what are you talking about? I pretended to know nothing. This is clearly a man. I pointed at the person in the photo. Then does this look familiar? My cousin pointed at the watch in another photo. That watch was picked out by my parents and cousin together, said to be my 18th birthday gift. I wore it from age 18 to 26, a full 8 years. Suddenly it feels so ironic. People who know me well could recognize me through just one small detail, yet today I stood downstairs for an entire afternoon, and no one knew. So, Nancy, did you really win 30 million? Mother asked impatiently. I took a deep breath and nodded. Where's the money? Father asked me. Dad, Mom, that's actually why I came to see you tonight." I looked at my parents, whom I've lived with for over 20 years, and suddenly felt like every word spoken at this moment was like walking on the edge of a knife. In order to withdraw this sum of money as quickly as possible, I first donated 5 million. "You're insane," my cousin immediately stood up and shouted, because donations can also offset some taxes. In the end, I received about 24 million. I ignored my cousin's voice and continued speaking. "What about that money?" my mother pressed on. "I've thought it over. I'll give all the money to you." As soon as I finished speaking, I saw an irrepressible smile spread across my parents' faces. "But I've consulted a lawyer, and this money will still come to me after you pass away, so I've divided it into several portions." "Nancy, you're crazy. Even if Mom and Dad are gone, this money won't be yours to claim," my cousin said, pointing at me. "Then it won't be yours either. I've set aside 5 million to establish a medical fund for you, so you won't have to worry about money when you're sick." After listening, the father nodded. "Nancy, you're right about this arrangement." "Does seeing a doctor cost this much money?" the cousin sneered, full of disdain. "I'll give you all the remaining money to manage, with 200,000 sent to you each month and 1 million at the end of the year. This way, it can last for 15 years. As soon as I finished speaking, my cousin immediately jumped up. "So you're saying Mom and Dad will have over 3 million a year?" I nodded. "Dad, Mom, I want to give you all this money, but I'm afraid you might be too soft-hearted and lend it to others. That's why I can only do it this way." I pinched my own thigh hard. "Dad, Mom, you won't blame me, will you?" Tears fell from the corners of my eyes, and I hurriedly wiped them away with a tissue. "The act must go on. What about you? Where are you living now? You didn't use this money to buy a house, did you?" my cousin questioned. "You guessed it right, I really did buy a house, but I won't tell you either." "Dad, Mom, the first 200,000 has already reached 100,000, I took 10,000 to rent a place. You won't blame me, will you?" I looked at my parents, hoping to read something from their expressions. It's okay, it's fine." Mother stood up and patted my shoulder. "Then leave the rest to me, I'll take care of it." I immediately transferred the 90,000 to them right in front of my parents. "All right, let's eat." Father looked at the balance, his smile so wide the wrinkles bunched together. After dinner, I rushed to do the dishes and then secretly placed everyone's chopsticks into a pre-prepared trash bag. "Dad, Mom, I'm leaving first. I'll take the trash with me too," I said while holding the trash bag. Yet, my parents and cousins sat on the sofa, not noticing my departure at all. I immediately rushed to the private hospital and arranged for an expedited paternity test. I thought the first question would soon be answered. I waited at the hospital all night, and when I received that report, my hands and feet turned ice cold. So it's true, I really was the child who was picked up. Suddenly, it feels so ironic. I used to fantasize about at least being the one to take care of them in their old age. So was this the reason I forgave my cousin back then? How ridiculous. Yet, when I saw the report between my cousin and my father, I was stunned. It ruled out any biological relationship. It suddenly dawned on me. My cousin had always been holding the paternity test report with my mother. I picked up the reports of my cousin and mother, which confirmed the existence of a biological relationship, so it was exactly as my cousin had said. But none of that matters now, since it's been confirmed that there's no biological relationship between me and them. Why should I keep deluding myself? The next day, I directly submitted my resignation at work. Now that I have money, I don't want them to find me, so I might as well go all the way. However, before I could figure out how to leave, my phone rang again. "Hello, Nancy, your father, he's in the ICU, came my mother's panicked voice on the other end. "What happened?" I quickly got up and headed out to drive. "Nancy, your father has had a brain hemorrhage." It was my mother's voice, choked with tears. How could he have a brain hemorrhage? Didn't he have a month's supply of his high blood pressure medication left? A bold hypothesis suddenly formed in my mind. But my mother's sobbing voice at that moment made me dismiss the thought. "Mom, don't panic. First tell me which hospital you're at. I'll come right away." When I arrived at the hospital, I saw my cousin on the phone while the doctor stood beside my mother urging her to sign some papers. "Mom, what's going on?" I quickly moved to stand beside my mother, listening to the doctor's explanation. "Save her. We want to save her, doctor. No matter what, save her." The mother clutched the doctor's hand tightly, crying as she spoke. "Auntie, please sign quickly. Once you sign, we can put her on the ventilator." "Why, can't you put her on the ventilator first and then have us sign?" My cousin snatched the pen from my mother's hand and shouted. My friends said that having us sign is just to absolve the doctors of responsibility. If you won't take responsibility, are you expecting us to? I snatched the pen from my cousin's hand and signed my name. Are you the patient's? The doctor asked, looking at my resolute expression. I'm the patient's daughter. He is my father. Who said you're the daughter? I am. With that, my cousin immediately tore up the consent form in the doctor's hand. The doctor was about to say something when he was suddenly interrupted by the sound of a monitor. Dr. Leo, the patient is in ventricular fibrillation, a nurse inside shouted. Sign it quickly, signing it will save them. The doctor pulled out another consent form. Why should we sign? If we don't, does that mean you won't save them? My cousin continued to argue unreasonably. Dr. Leo, the patient has stopped breathing and carotid pulse is absent. The nurse continued to shout. The doctor threw the consent form at me. You sign first. I snatched the pen from my cousin's hand and signed my name once again. We can still perform resuscitation without the signature, my cousin said dismissively. I slapped her across the face. I'd wanted to do that for a long time, and finally doing it today felt incredibly satisfying. You damn bastard, don't even look around to see where this is. Is this the place for you to act up? Cursing it out felt truly liberating. My cousin stared at me with utter disbelief. Sweetie, mother held my cousin tenderly, her heart aching. You dare hit me, so what if I hit you? You deserve it. Dad's in there fighting for his life, and you're here spouting nonsense. I handed the notice to the young nurse standing by the emergency room door. Nurse, I'm counting on you. Nancy, I'm going to fight you to the death, my cousin said as she stood up, ready to hit me. I kicked her in the stomach, sat on top of her, and pinned her down. Let me tell you something, even if I beat you until your spleen ruptures, I have the skills to patch you up just so I can beat you all over again. With that, I slapped him again. In the end, it was the hospital security who pulled us apart. I stood outside the emergency room, anxiously waiting for the results of my father's treatment. Meanwhile, my cousin was sobbing in my mother's arms. I walked over and kicked her. Cry, cry, cry. What are you crying about? You didn't even cry this much when Dad was in the emergency room. Did you deliberately put Dad in there? My cousin suddenly stopped crying, looking at me with shock on her face. As I watched her expression, a chill suddenly rose from the soles of my feet. I just said it casually. Could it really be true? Who said that? I didn't want Dad to end up in the emergency room either. Seeing my cousin stammering, my thoughts grew even bolder. However, before I could continue my speculation, the doctor walked out of the emergency room. Doctor, how is it? I stepped forward to ask. The doctor shook his head. Make funeral arrangements. Mother suddenly burst into tears with a loud wail, and tears streamed from the corners of my eyes too. Thank you, doctor. I bowed to the doctor. The doctor helped me up and said, Young lady, you should keep your distance from your sister from now on. Following the doctor's gaze toward my cousin, I suddenly noticed a fleeting smile at the corner of her lips. I thought to myself, it's time I verified the truth. Mom, did you bring Dad's high blood pressure medication? I asked, steadying my mother. Yes. Mother nodded and was about to take it out from her bosom when my cousin slapped her hand away. The person is already gone. Why would we still need high blood pressure medicine? My cousin's eyes darted around, as if afraid someone might notice something. The doctor just told me that if it hasn't been used, the medicine can be returned. I picked up the medicine without changing my expression. Oh. My cousin glanced at me guiltily. I took the medicine to the doctor's office. Doctor, this is my father's blood pressure medication, I said as I handed the medicine to the doctor. The young doctor opened it and glanced inside. This is vitamin C, he said. I immediately snatched the medicine back from the doctor's hand. Vitamin C is slightly yellow, while captopril is white, the doctor continued to explain to me. Could it be that your father hasn't been taking his blood pressure medication recently? Another nurse speculated. It suddenly occurred to me that it had been just over a month since I was kicked out of the house. Doctor, if my father hasn't taken his blood pressure medication for over a month, could that lead to a brain hemorrhage? My hands trembled, and I bit my lip hard. We can't say for certain, but theoretically, it's possible. Excessive emotional fluctuations can also contribute. I took a deep breath and asked again, what if both conditions are met? Then the likelihood of a cerebral hemorrhage would be significantly higher. Thank you, doctor. I walked out of the doctor's office with the medicine. I don't know how I managed to walk out of the doctor's office. The cicadas chirping outside the window reminded me of the day's heat, yet I stood before my mother with icy hands and feet. So, Nancy, how much money did you get back? My mother came over and asked. At this moment, my mother seems like a stranger before me. I don't know whether it's my mother or my cousin, what roles they're actually playing in this matter, but I know I must preserve the evidence. The doctor said there are only 2 or 3 tablets left, and they can't be returned. We informed the relatives and held a simple funeral for my father. The day after the funeral, my cousin came to find me. Nancy, Dad is gone. What about the $5 million for his medical treatment, sis? I've told you before, that money was all for Mom and Dad, I replied without turning my head as I packed my father's belongings. I've consulted a lawyer, we both have inheritance rights, my cousin said, standing in front of me. Mom inherits first, I replied expressionlessly. At that moment, all I had in my hand was that box of vitamin C. I had no idea what really happened to cause my father's death. But one thing I knew for sure, I had to keep my cousin in check. Or at least keep my mother steady. At the very least, I could let them fight among themselves. As for who my cousin's father was, it no longer matters. I think all my questions have become irrelevant. What truly matters is understanding the truth behind my father's death. I've already submitted the relevant information to the police, though they've said that since my father has been cremated, the chances of uncovering anything are slim. Still, it's worth a try. Moreover, there's feedback from the private investigator. Cousin, the competition between us has only just begun. Can that money be withdrawn? My cousin asked persistently. No, it's a medical fund, unless both parents are gone, I continued. I don't know how to withdraw from the medical fund either, but of course you can't withdraw something that never existed in the first place. Those were just things I used to deceive them, at the very least. At that time I genuinely wanted to give my parents money for their retirement. Then can Mom withdraw it if she wants to? My cousin still refused to give up. No, I was already annoyed by my cousin's questioning. So the money can only be accessed if both parents are gone. My cousin double-checked. Yes, sis, if you're so free, why don't you spend some time with Mom instead? Besides, if you keep asking, I'm going to slip up. My cousin tactfully walked away. I left my mother and cousin at home and secretly took my father's belongings to the police station. I also went to the private detective's office and saw the information they had uncovered. It was pretty much what I had suspected. My mother had indulged in forbidden fruit in her youth, resulting in my cousin, and my father had ended up being the one to take responsibility. Later, to prevent my father from finding out, there came to be me. However, that me was stillborn, so my mother found me. After that, because both parents were working and there was the one-child policy, only one child was allowed, so my cousin was sent away, and then, the rest is the story as I know it. So, that's why my cousin said those words at the emergency room door. But my parents raised me for over 20 years. I think if my mother wasn't involved in my father's affairs, I would still take care of her in her old age. When I returned home, I happened to see my cousin acting coquettishly with my mother, who was laughing happily. It seemed my cousin had managed to cheer my mother up quite well. Mom, I'm back, I spoke up, breaking the warm scene. Oh, Mom, your daughter is back. My cousin stood up, smiling at me. Yeah, I nodded. Nancy, Mom wants to sell this house. My mother rubbed her hands together as she looked at me. Why? I looked at my mother in surprise. This was the house my parents had worked their whole lives to leave behind. How could Mother just decide to sell it like that? I've thought about it, and I don't want to be reminded of the past by seeing these things, Mother said, wiping the tears from the corners of her eyes. All right, I nodded. Then I'll list the house with the agency for sale tomorrow, my cousin said excitedly. Tomorrow, so soon? I looked at my mother. Mother nodded. I want to leave this place of sorrow as soon as possible. Where will you live afterward? I asked again. Sister, look, the apartment you rented. My cousin glanced at me, then at my mother. The rent for my place is only $10,000 a year. Are you sure you want to stay? Right now, I have zero trust in my cousin or my mother, so lies come easily to me. Of course, my mother immediately made her stance clear. All right, I'll tidy up tomorrow, and you can move in the day after, I said without changing my expression. Turning around, I dashed into the kitchen and sent a message to the real estate agent. Money makes the mare go, and soon enough, the agent found me a basement. Cousin, since you want to live in my house, then live to your heart's content. Soon, I had someone decorate the basement to look like a proper room, and I placed the short-sleeved shirts I bought online for just over $10 there. The bed sheet was the cheapest one I could find at the wholesale market. When my mother and cousin came with their belongings and saw everything I had set up, they decisively went to a 5-star hotel instead. Nancy, I don't mean to criticize, but you've won $30 million. Why are you still living in a basement? My cousin was sipping soda in the presidential suite while scolding me. I've already prepared all the money for Mom and Dad, I said while helping my mother pack her things. You're so foolish, not even keeping a little for yourself, my cousin continued. Whatever belongs to Mom and Dad belongs to me too, I said deliberately. How do you know Mom and Dad's things are yours? My cousin snorted coldly, looking at me. Of course, some of it is yours too, sis, I said ingratiatingly. Cousin, I wonder what it feels like to fall from a great height. My cousin turned her head with a smile, ignoring my words. Just when I thought my cousin and mother would quiet down for a few days, I received another call from the hospital. Hello, are you a family member of Ms. Nansida? Ms. Nansida is currently undergoing emergency treatment at People's Hospital. Emergency treatment, I confirmed again. Yes, the voice on the other end affirmed. Okay, I'm on my way. I quickly got up and drove to the hospital. By the time I arrived at the hospital, I was already told that my mother couldn't be saved. What happened? I questioned the uniformed hotel staff. Since the incident occurred at the hotel must be held responsible. When we cleaners went in to tidy up the room, we found your mother lying on the floor. The hotel manager replied with neither humility nor arrogance. What about my sister, the woman who was staying with my mother? I inquired again. That lady left this morning and hasn't returned yet. She only told us before leaving to clean the room at noon, and it had to be exactly at noon. Does it have to be at noon? I repeated the question. What exactly does my cousin want to do? What else is she planning to take? What does this have to do with my mother's affairs? Has the hotel room been sealed off? Have you called the police? I asked the hotel manager. Last time, with my father's case, the police said there was no body, making progress difficult. What about this time? What does my cousin want to do this time? Or rather, what is she trying to achieve? Ms. Nancy, rest assured. We have already reported this to the police immediately. Soon, the police came to the hospital to take my statement. After completing the statement, I sat in despair in the outpatient hall. Soon, the police found my cousin. My cousin said it was our mother who told her to clean the room at noon. As for herself, she had just gone out to run some errands. Before I could finish listening, my phone vibrated. It was a message from the hotel. Opening the message, a series of photos immediately caught my eye. In the photos, my mother was slumped among wine bottles and soda bottles, with even a milk tea packaging bag in the trash. All of these were things the doctor had forbidden her to consume after her diabetes diagnosis. I only buy my mother one drink each month to satisfy her occasional craving. Who bought these for her, and in such large quantities? The answer goes without saying. I went to the police and requested an autopsy. Ms. Nancy, I'm sorry, but you are not qualified to request an autopsy. The police officer's words sent me straight to hell. What do you mean? Only immediate family members can consent to an autopsy, and you're not one of them. The bureaucratic response came from the other end. Am I not my parents' daughter? How can that not count? I retorted, but according to your household registration, it shows you're not. The officer showed me the information retrieved from the computer. The household register only listed my mother and sister's names, with my father's column marked as deceased. How could that be? I never transferred my household registration ID card. My ID card is still here. I took out my ID card from the bag and handed it to the police. Could you check again for me? I'm sorry, but this ID card of yours has been reported lost. The other person handed the ID back to me. What's going on? Calm down, Nancy, calm down. There must be something I've overlooked. Calm down, stay calm. I took a deep breath and looked at my cousin who was taking notes. Business, he's been out on business since morning. What kind of business? Officer, I have a lead to provide. I looked at my cousin, suddenly forming a bold speculation in my mind. I now suspect that the daughter living with the deceased may have committed murder. As I spoke, I laid out everything I knew, including the money I had fabricated. In summary, the deceased's daughter had a reasonable motive to kill the deceased and stage it as an accident. Ms. Nancy, if what you say is true, then this is no longer a civil case but a criminal one, the police officer said as he handed me the transcript. Please review it to see if there are any inaccuracies. If not, please sign it. I signed my name on the transcript. Cousin, since I might not be able to outmaneuver you, let's bring in a third party. Ms. Nancy, please do not leave the city until the case is clarified. The other party retrieved the documents and said. I nodded. These past few days, I first applied for a replacement ID card and checked the loss report records. Sure enough, it was reported lost on the morning of the day my mother had the accident. Then, I went to the real estate agency to inquire about the buying and selling of the house. The day after my mother's accident, the house was sold. and all the money was transferred to my cousin's account. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I thought my cousin would soon come to ask me about the medical fund, but before my cousin could ask, the first thing that arrived was the announcement of the neighborhood's demolition. In my previous life, since I was constantly in the hospital, I never found out if the neighborhood got demolished. This time around, seeing the news and the fact that my cousin sold her house, I celebrated right inside the house. You tried to outsmart me but ended up losing out, cousin. Bet you didn't see that coming. Soon, my cousin's call came through. Nancy, you know about it, right? About the neighborhood being demolished. Sis, I told you from the very beginning that the neighborhood was going to be demolished. At that moment, I was doing a home manicure appointment, feigning innocence in response to my cousin's questioning. Good, very good, you've really grown some skills. The gritted teeth voice of my cousin on the phone made me laugh out loud with joy. Before, out of respect for my parents' 20+ years of nurturing, I had always held myself back. Now, I've completely let myself go. Cousin, you flatter me. Oh, I forgot, you only graduated high school, so you probably don't understand that phrase. Nancy, I'm coming to that crappy basement of yours right now to settle the score. Bring it on, cousin. Just wait to get hauled into the police station again. The call ended, and I cheerfully picked at the diamonds embedded in my manicure. The household registration is already under my name for this property, and the ID card is in my own hands. No matter what tricks my cousin tries to pull, she can go ahead and do as she pleases. Not long after, the police station called me. Ms. Nancy, hello, your sister, Ms. Linda, is currently being interrogated at XH Road Police Station for suspected illegal trespassing. A pleasant female voice came from the other end of the line. I don't know her, officer, you must have made a mistake. I don't have a sister. With that, I hung up the phone. Days without anyone causing trouble make even drinking water feel effortless. A few days later, my cousin called me again. Nancy, tell me, where did you put our parents' medical funds? I hadn't expected my cousin to be released so quickly. It seems I still underestimated her. What medical fund? I had no idea about this, I asked absent-mindedly while strolling through the mall. Fine, Nancy, you little liar, at such a young age, you've already learned to deceive people. On the other end of the phone, my cousin was rambling on, while I walked into the luxury brand section. The next time I saw my cousin was at the police station. The reason was still illegal trespassing, but this time it was my house that was invaded. Ms. Nancy, do you wish to hold the other party accountable? The police showed me the video captured by the neighborhood security. In the video, my cousin was arrogantly claiming that this was her sister's house and threatening the security guard. I didn't watch the entire video, just silently put on my sunglasses. I don't know her. Pursue whatever actions you need to take, and I'll cooperate fully. I'll have my lawyer follow up later. Cousin, are you satisfied now that everything has gone your way? Soon, following the procedures, my cousin was once again detained in the holding cell. At this moment, I just hope the police can move faster. My cousin has already found out where I live. I think my cousin will make her next move soon. Although I've been guarding against her, there will always be oversights, but since my cousin already knows where I live, it's time to move again. This time, I didn't buy another house and just checked into a hotel directly. Although hotels aren't very safe either, you can leave at any time. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. My cousin probably never expected I'd go straight to a hotel. From the lawyer, I learned my cousin would be spending a month in detention. I hope the police can uncover something during this month. I had just settled into a few peaceful days when the police called me again. Miss Nancy, we need your cooperation again regarding Ms. Linda's case. The person on the other end of the line said hesitantly. All right, I agreed readily and immediately headed to the police station. I never expected that what awaited me was my cousin sitting in the interrogation room, handcuffed. Miss Nancy, the suspect insists on seeing you before revealing the truth. The officer pointed at my cousin. I nodded and walked in with the police. Oh, little sister is here, my cousin said with a sarcastic tone. Yes, elder sister. How did you end up like this? I retorted with equal sarcasm. To me, she was just a stranger I grew up with, someone without any blood ties. From the moment she pushed me down the stairs in my past life, I had no intention of treating her well. Isn't this all thanks to you? My cousin raised her handcuffed wrists. Not at all, not at all. You flatter me, cousin. Indeed, I never intended to send her to the police station. It was only her later actions that led me to piece things together. I've asked the police. You've already spent most of those 30 million. Yeah, I've pretty much spent it all. I didn't deny it. Originally, Those 30 million were almost gone. Everything I said to them was just to keep them calm. Then why did you make it sound so nice, saying you'd saved all the money for mom and dad? My cousin suddenly stood up and pointed at me. Yeah, I did plan to use it for mom and dad's retirement. I didn't refute anything she said. In the end. After all my scheming, you still managed to slip away, my cousin said self-deprecatingly as she sat down. But I should thank you for your schemes, cousin, otherwise, I wouldn't have known how capable I am. Don't act smug just because you got lucky, you're just a foundling. Still no match for me. My cousin's triumphant expression made it seem as if she had already known I'd be heartbroken, but this time, her plan was about to fail. Yeah. This adopted child of yours is currently enjoying a comfortable life with those 30 million, I continued, adding fuel to the fire without any remorse. My cousin's face turned green with anger. Haha, do you know how Dad died? My cousin suddenly asked me in return. Then does cousin know? I shot back. I'll tell you secretly. It wasn't me who switched Dad's medicine. Ha 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 ha. My cousin suddenly laughed like a madwoman. You didn't expect that, did you? Ha ha ha. Who changed it? Tell me. Who was it? I ran up to her, gripping her shoulders tightly as I asked. Guess? Ha ha ha. I forced myself to calm down and glanced at the police officer sitting beside me. Is it Mom? I asked in return. No, of course not. My cousin shook her head. You'd never guess. Could it be Dad who changed it himself? I inquired again. My cousin suddenly looked at me. Nancy. You're very clever. Back then, Dad believed the rumor himself that he could recover without taking his high blood pressure medication, but he didn't want to tell you, afraid you'd scold him, so he secretly switched the pills to vitamins. My cousin, kindly, explained. Then how did you find out? I asked my cousin again. Of course, it was our dear mother who discovered it when she was changing his medication. My cousin sneered and continued. One morning after we found out, Mom and I told him I wasn't his biological daughter, neither were you, and that Mom never loved him. Who would have thought he'd immediately have a stroke from anger? Even with a stroke, Dad shouldn't have died from failed resuscitation, right? I pressed on. Right, so, it was me. While Mom was calling for an ambulance, I pushed him down the stairs. My cousin pointed at herself and said with a smile, it was also you who deliberately delayed and hindered the rescue. I continued my cousin's words. Yes, this matter could have ended just like that, but it was you. My cousin pointed at me. It was your refusal to let go. If you hadn't secretly called the police, no one would have found out. Everyone would have thought it was just an accident. If you don't want others to know, don't do it in the first place, I said calmly. I never expected to feel this way after learning the truth. At the very least, I thought I would confront my cousin. But I didn't anticipate being so calm. Perhaps my feelings for my parents were exhausted in a past life. For me, providing for them in their old age is the greatest concession I can make. What about Mom? I continued to ask. Mom just has a sweet tooth, since she craves sweets. Of course, as her daughter, I have to satisfy all her cravings. My cousin looked at me again. But why didn't you tell me Mom has diabetes? Why? My cousin screamed hysterically, as if she wanted to tear me to pieces. It's you who never cared about Mom. She had to take diabetes medication before every meal. You just never noticed. I calmly looked at my cousin who had gone mad before me. I suppose in my past life, I too had once fantasized about sisterly affection. I watched Mom collapse in front of me. I was terrified. My cousin hugged herself, trembling uncontrollably. But the thought of that 5 million stopped me from calling an ambulance. My cousin looked up at me, tears streaming from the corners of her eyes. I thought, with our parents gone, as long as you weren't their daughter, I could get that 5 million, I could finally have it. Seeing her like this, for a moment, I even doubted myself. Was it the words I fabricated that harmed my cousin and my parents? But in my past life, it was also my cousin who instigated my parents to abandon me at the hospital. At least in this lifetime, I never harbored any intention to harm others. So I stayed by Mom's side all night, and it wasn't until the next morning that I told the attendant to clean the room at noon, my cousin said, releasing the arms that had been holding her. What about my household registration? What happened with that? I continued to ask. To prevent you from sharing that 1 million with me, I disguised myself as you and went to the service hall. As she spoke, my cousin began gesturing with her hands. Do you know, you're way too careless. The ID photo you sent me before came in handy this time. My cousin pointed at her face and continued. I told them my face got stung by a bee and swelled up badly, so I gave them the prearranged ID photo. My cousin kept laughing as she said, they bought it. Ha ha ha. they actually bought it. My cousin clapped her hands and laughed heartily, as if mocking them, getting a replacement ID card, transferring household registration. Everything went surprisingly smooth. I even finished all the procedures before the hotel could call me. Ha ha ha. I watched my cousin flailing her arms like a madwoman and let out a deep sigh. So, what's the point of calling me here now, to hear the truth? I asked again. In my memory at least, my cousin wasn't this kind-hearted. She always had a way to lure others into her traps, striking at their very foundations. Of course not. My cousin looked at me. I called you here to make you understand. If it weren't for your lies, our parents would still be alive. At the very least, I wouldn't have harbored any intention to harm them, my cousin said matter-of-factly, as if trying to shift all the responsibility onto me. But even if I lied, the money would still be in our parents' hands, like the initial 90,000. I knew I couldn't fall into my cousin's logical trap. Don't push your own mistakes onto me. No, it's you. If you didn't have money, I wouldn't have harmed Mom and Dad for it. My cousin once again turned the spearhead toward me, waiting for me to admit my mistake. You're wrong. It was your greed that harmed Mom and Dad. Had I not experienced the events of my past life, I might have fallen into this logical trap again, but now I don't feel that way anymore. At least I don't blame myself anymore. Even if I had no money, if my family's house got demolished for redevelopment, wouldn't you want to get the compensation money? I retorted to my cousin. Everyone has desires. Just like nobody doesn't want a good life. That's human nature, I continued. You can satisfy your desires through your own efforts and legal means, but it shouldn't be like this. I looked at my cousin and suddenly felt she was so pitiful. Even now, she remains lost in her own world. At the very least, if you hadn't harbored ill intentions, you would be the one receiving the demolition compensation now. I quietly watched my cousin sitting on the stool, sighed, then turned and left the interrogation room. The moment the interrogation room door closed, my cousin's crying could be heard from inside. I thought, perhaps this was the best arrangement for my cousin. If we consider this world as a parallel one, then in this world, at the very least, I have no regrets toward anyone. Truth be told, back then, I had also considered getting along well with my cousin and taking care of our parents in their old age, if so many things hadn't happened. At least everyone would be fine. At least, I wouldn't have known I was an orphan. That's all the story.